This meeting is being recorded.
One of these days, I'll figure out how to turn that off. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Partlow Art 52 Week Art Challenge. This is week 8. I can hardly believe that it's gone by this quickly. I'm Mama Nef from Partlow Art, joined by the brilliant Jaki-Terry. And we're back to talk some more about process as it revolves around scene analysis and scene study. And I have 2 new pieces to show this week. And so without further ado, let's jump right into it. Hey, Mama Jack.
Hey.
Hey.
It's been a busy day, but I'm glad I was able to carve out some time. And thank you. And discuss some things. As I was running my errands today, I would be remiss not to talk about part of the process of developing script discoveries and analysis and what have you, without talking about a very important function of what it is, and which is speech. And the challenge that comes up for me often is, while diction is important in all aspects, at one part does it become at what part does the line between colloquial and not necessarily formal, traditional English play a part? Because I had ran into this challenge at when I was defending. Of course, you can't go to school without studying Shakespeare and all the diction that goes with that. So long that you come across those that the dominant culture holds in esteem, those Oscar Wildes and Eugene O'Neill's, yeah, and all of those. But there seems to be a challenge when it comes to when the language becomes familiar to us. Classic examples, when I was doing my Rainey, I had a fellow actor that was working with me. Excuse me, swallowed. Who was constantly reminding me that the rules don't apply with this particular script. The rounding off of the G's and completing endings of sentences, because the nature of who these characters were, where Ma Rainey came from, all of that. And it would always show up when my speech and diction professor would show up. She was also a speech and coach for the American Players Theater. So whenever she would show up, something in my brain would automatically go back to correcting the speech where it did not need correcting. The text informed how it should lay. So it brought up some very interesting points for me. And I hear it a lot, especially living out here in the Southwest, about, the fact that I have this beautifully distinctive Baltimore accent. And I recognized how hard they worked for me to neutralize that. And how after coming out of school, I realized, no, I need to embrace this. Because I'm here. There's too much work being done. I got called on too many times to learn how to make that accent happen. And I realized I was sitting on something that was very valuable to actors who want to work in that part of the country, who want to land roles in the DMV, who want to authenticate and pay homage to that very distinctive Mid-Atlantic dialect. So we studied this book in school, and I'm going to show it to you. It's a very important book. It's called Speak with Distinction by Edith Skinner. My professor was a protege of her. So, of course, as far as she was concerned, Edith Skinner was the I Ching. Okay. And it goes into the important pieces that you have to go into. You learn how to handle IPA. You learn how sounds are formed.
And for
You
those
know,
in the audience who don't know what IPA is, can you?
the International Phonetic Alphabet. So you have um, vowel charts, consonant charts, diphthong charts. Um, you learn what parts of the mouth form words, fricative, and rounding out what parts of I'm looking for all of them. The whole process of voice and speech and syllabication and warm-up exercises and all that. Essential, necessary. I don't care whether you're doing a dialect or not, you need them. Because there are cases where you have really, really large pieces of text that require that you have good breath control and good articulation skills and all of that. And then you come across an August Wilson piece, a Shea Youngblood piece. Well, all those rules go out the door. The diction holds to a point, but there's also the art of telling the story and showing up truthful in it.
Authentic.
And part of it,
As
yeah.
authentic character.
And part of that is how they talk.
Yeah. That
So,
reminds me, I was watching Academy Awards last night, and Jimmy Kimmel was the host. And at one point, you know, how they have banter with actors in the audience. And he made a comment to Colin Farrell, the extraordinary film, Banshees of Inisherin. And he was saying, you know, it was wonderful, but there are people, somebody said they couldn't understand what you were saying, you know, because of the thick Irish accents. And so it's, you know, to that point that you're speaking, it's like, okay, diction, speech, all of that matters. It's one of the fundamental things that we learn when we start to study theater. And we also realize in certain characters, especially Black characters from certain sectors of the country, if we're being true to who they are, you know, then how they speak must come forward, you know, and it's just like, so it's acceptable here, and to me, it speaks to even a larger issue that I think a lot of artists in general work through, and that is locating ourselves and feeling accepted as we are, as we come, period. Just feeling accepted and a part of and appreciated, and showing up our authentic selves and finding, you know, realizing when we're in coalition spaces and when we're not. Yeah. So then how did they treat that issue where you were, especially at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, when it came to certain characters that you portrayed who were Black, who were from a specific geographical area, and you wanted to capture the way that they talk. You wanted to authentically drop into how they spoke.
Exactly. I think, and I don't think my either she was consciously or unconsciously aware of how much of her own personal bias she brought into that whole process. And it was a constant critique every night of the show. To the point where one of my fellow actors had to step up and say something. It's like, with all due respect, this is what we need from her as an ensemble. This is how the text is written. This is how the people from Pittsburgh, from the Chicago, Ma Rainey being from Columbus, Georgia, the characters, even though the storyline takes place in Chicago, and folk from the Delta. So they bring that whole Delta idiom with them. that whole African American vernacular with them, that very regionally specific vernacular with them. And I had spent the whole last part of the whole year learning her music, placing where her voice came from. I needed to hear her and people like her from Columbus, Georgia. I needed to hear how they talked. Because it's about, again, it's about telling the truth about who this character was. Be it real, real or fiction. I have to tell the truth about where they're from. And us know us and what parts of the country our ancestors came from. There's no generic Southern dialect that you can extrapolate from.
No, like
it's just not. It's just not. North Carolina folk don't talk like South Carolina folk. South Carolina folk don't talk like Georgia. Nobody talks like anybody from the Sea Islands.
Yeah, Eastern North Carolina. That didn't sound anything to me like the folks that I heard in Western North Carolina.
You understand me? So it takes a keen, trained ear. I thank her because she made me very, very mindful of sociolinguistics and the part it plays in telling story. But the other side was what I needed her desperately to do is get out of the way and let the process happen. And perhaps it's your time to learn some things. I was not expecting that. You know, perhaps this is your opportunity to learn some things.
Yeah, and so when we're in those places and spaces as creative people, and for whatever reason, we have to be there. Not that we're chained there, but we're choosing to be there. And in choosing to be there, we have to follow, you know, whatever the guidelines are, whatever the agreements are, whatever the requirements are. And so now that we are on the other side of those experiences, we are at places where we can choose.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, we
so
can
it was
absolutely choose.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, what do we say? How do we coach? And then a coach may not be the best word, but how do we support other young people, whether they are actors or, you know, visual artists coming into a project, and these are the expectations, period.
Absolutely.
However biased, however sometimes, you know, just not even appropriate for what we're doing, why we're doing there, or our reasons, our own reasons for being there, why we're showing, or what we are representing, what we're committed to, what our intentions are, you know, but still, so we go through that, what's to be gained from that experience, right? It's like you're saying, knowing, absolutely, okay. So you are tied and tethered to this school, as you said, of social linguistics, and this is the way you must show up, and you're tied to that. And to know that that's not the total reality, you know, that we can go other places and do our work from a different perspective, from a different creative methodology.
And it's all valid. So one of the things I did after I finished school is I finally sat down and binged watching The Wire, because, you know, I'm working that whole time when The Wire was airing. I didn't get a chance to see it. So when I finally sat down and I listened to it, and I listened to people like Idris Elba try to step into that space, and it's like, close but no cigar, sir. You know, you definitely East Coast. Consider you're Afro-Ghanaian, you know, Afro-British Ghanaian. You know, you're on the right side of the coast, but you're in the wrong state. You sound too New York.
You know, they had speech coaches for those actors.
Absolutely.
And they said it was a couple of them said it was the only script that they ever had where there was a glossary in the back of the script.
Had to be.
You know,
had to be
to inform them how you pronounce certain words like dog.
Mm-hmm. Doug, yeah. Doug and Fug, to do.
Whoops.
So it's like, so I started listening to that, and that was part of my healing from that indoctrination. Because for all intents and purposes, that's what it felt like.
Yeah.
It felt like an indoctrination. There's a time and a place for it. And of course, I was constantly told, well, this is the work. Well, yeah, it's the work when I'm doing Chekhov. It's the work when I'm doing Oscar Wilde or Noel Coward, which I think I am no fan of Noel Cowards at all. At all. Sorry, not sorry. I think he's a very biased racist Englishman. I'm sorry, not sorry. That's what I think. Not a fan.
Call it
but and there's a time when, like I said, you step into some Susan Laurie Parks, you know, or you step into some Lynn Nottage. And Lynn likes to play with period pieces too, but still, all in all, there's a linguistic value that we bring that must have some appeal, because you keep presenting these people's work. You know, at August Wilson, please, it goes to Stand Without Reason. There's a whole cadence that goes with August Wilson, not just in terms of speech and diction, but the rhythm of it.
I was going to say the rhythm. Especially when you talk about the rhythm of different decades.
Exactly.
That influenced the way people absolutely spoke.
Absolutely. So back to watching The Wire, I'm hearing my mother tongue for all intents and purposes, because at my heart, I'm a Baltimore girl. I'm a Baltimore girl. I make no apologies for it. I am who I am. I show up how I show up. And while the work may require that I drop into other spaces, when I'm no longer on the script, or as Ntozake Shange would say, ever so elegantly, I get tired and I got to come off the floor.
Yes.
Yeah, I get tired. I got to come off the floor. I need a rest. I need to diffuse from all of that. You know, diffuse from all of that. And where's Jackie in all of this?
Yes.
And so I'm listening to The Wire, and I'm like, so who's educating these people? Because not all these actors are from Baltimore.
Majority of them are leads.
Okay.
The leads.
With the exception of Robert Chu, who played Proposition Joe.
And then Maria Broom had a recurring.
Maria Broom had a part, but you know, Maria brings a certain je ne sais quoi to the craft. She's also a trained actor, so she knows how to show up in spaces. Compare her in The Wire to her on The Corner. Two different people, but she knows how to navigate those spaces. But the point I'm getting to is that there's a time to know when to step in and do the work, and there's a time for sometimes even the instructor to step back and see how the work is being processed through the student as they're unfolding and examining the text. Because that in of itself is a discovery. Why did they make that choice? You know,
and who the student is authentically informs the text. And wouldn't it be interesting to have this character to be from Baltimore than where it was originally, you know, or if a character isn't even as, you know, the birth origins, or, you know, the character's not identified by a specific geographical location or nationality, like,
A perfect example. I got to see a production of Romeo and Juliet, and the storyline took place in Brooklyn. So with all that rich Elizabethan text, you drop it in
Mm-hmm.
You drop it on Flatbush and Nordstrom.
Mm-hmm.
What you doing with it now?
Mm-hmm.
And how do you make that accessible to the people who are coming to see it, who have an appreciation for Shakespeare, by the by? Don't ever stop and think, for those who think that we don't understand, the classics or your classics, we do.
We do. We
We've been
had to. Wait a minute. That was
we're
we
indoctrinated
couldn't
by it.
graduate high school, and
No,
we
we could
couldn't
not.
graduate, college for those. I was a
No, we
double
could
major
not.
when I started school. I was a double major in English with a theater concentration and visual art, and we had to study two
Yeah.
semesters straight up Shakespeare. All right. So
Not just the
and you
plays,
had to
any
know
and
the
all
classics.
sonnets.
Hmm?
Any and all sonnets, and not just the plays, any and all sonnets that he may have written.
Yes, and the
Yeah.
sonnets.
Hello.
And so, and then, you go down the line, of course, Eugene O'Neill's and all of, you had to study when you're talking about 20th century, you had to study all of those folks. So yes, we had to study
Yeah.
all of that. We knew that. Which is one
But
of the reasons.
but I'm Romeo and I'm Juliet and I'm in East Flatbush.
Yeah, that's kind of sweet.
So how do we handle that material? How do we tell that story?
Mhm.
Or one of my favorites when I got to see Denzel Washington, Julius Caesar, and he's walking center stage in a Brooks Brothers suit,
Yes, wearing it too.
killing it. Okay, where's the all right? So where do we place the value in that?
Mhm. Just
How
take,
do we show up in those spaces?
just take what, Lin-Manuel did with Hamilton. Yeah.
So at what point do you hold fast to the rules? Or as she would say, at what point do you take the tools from your toolbox? What tools do you take from the toolbox?
Mhm.
In order to address the work. And not every
Mhm.
tool fits not every tool fits every function. And I think
Address-
that was my takeaway.
Oh, I'm
That was
sorry.
my takeaway with that. My takeaway with that. Yeah,
You address the
my
work and then you address what's coming when you're in the work, all of that stuff that rushes in. Once you got the lines down, you understand the script, you're into your character, and then your rehearsal and this stuff just starts happening that wasn't written in the script, that was not on that page.
and that's where the real stuff, that's where the real discoveries happen. Because the lines are in your muscle memory, the blocking is in your muscle memory. Once you got those out of the way, let's play. What's the discovery? What am I learning from the script? What is this character trying to tell me about her?
Yeah.
And can I let her live without the restrictions of somebody in my ear going, oh, but you dropped the G at the end of a sentence and it's in the script.
Yeah.
It became very tedious. So props and praises to Edith Skinner and learning how to speak with distinction. There is value in warming up your voice. There is value in taking care of your instrument. There is value of learning how to project your voice without hurting your throat. There is value of attacking consonants and rounding out vowels. But let's not get so lost in the technical that we forget we're storytellers.
Yeah, that you forget the creative. And yet you aren't being of service to that which is emerging. Again, that's not about the word or how the word, that's just what's coming up in that process. This is so rich because it's like we learn our crafts. We're taught tools, we discover sometimes tools, we practice with these tools. And then we're encouraged to stretch and grow, and it's like you said, some things is just muscle memory. They're in you. And when do we get to liberate ourselves from just some very, very strict, rigid guidelines of how to use these tools in this way?
Rigid. That's the word, rigid. And I think
Yeah.
it was the rigidity that could have froze me had it not been for my fellow actor. It's like,
Mm,
wait,
mm,
when this person's not here, you on it. You're fine on all cylinders. You know, you're feeding everybody in the room and everybody's feeding you and everybody is having a wonderful experience. And then you walk in the room and now all of a sudden everything is froze up.
mhm, mhm,
So it's at what point do you allow the director, and mind you, she wasn't even a director, she was an advisor.
mhm. Yeah, yeah.
So finally the conversation had to be had with the AD who took it up, the chain of command is she can't come backstage. No more notes. Shows up,
Mhm. Yeah.
you know.
Wow, wow. I had to get to that point,
Yeah.
which also,
She's hindering the process right now. Any teaching to be done has been done.
mhm. That it's also speaking to, ooh, so we just as we are uniquely made, we could have all gone through the same schools, gone through the same processes. We all do not speak the same.
We don't.
Um, mm, that experience, it just the more I'm feeling it, the more it's getting up under my skin.
I'm gonna tell you the distinction when I got the invitation to come to St. Louis to do the same show. Oh my gosh, girl, I felt like a 10-ton anvil got taken off my back.
Ooh.
Because now I've done the show. I did a whole run of the show now. So I'm coming in for all intents and purposes. I'm off book.
Yeah.
We closed the show on Sunday. I'm in St. Louis Tuesday.
Oh, I remember that. I remember when you went to do, yes. And then being in that, so being in that place where you could just like arrive all up into that character and have the freedom without the thing in the back, the self-talk. Am I pronouncing these G's? Am I pronouncing these T's? Am I giving the stress here? Am I breathing and just the freedom, which again, we are at a certain point and a certain age and a certain comfort level, personally and financially, where we can pick and choose.
Yeah.
And
And the bonus with all of that is having somebody like an Antonio Fargas saying, okay, for this scene, this is what I need from you.
mhm, mhm,
And what do you need from me?
mhm.
New air, clean
Yeah,
air, fresh air.
fresh air, the fresh
I
air.
get to work
So,
with not only somebody, I get to work with somebody who's been doing this forever. I
mhm,
mean, I remember watching you when I was a kid, and here
mhm.
I'm standing next to you and I'm sharing stage, and I'm being advised lovingly, generously,
Yes, yes.
I
Not
mean,
in a
absolutely,
critical way that shuts you down.
not at all. I mean, absolutely pouring into me. And then I got the director who directed me in You Can't Take It With You, who's now sharing stage with me. So now I got Ron Himes over here, and he's pouring into me. This is what I need. And then I
Mhm.
got this brother over here who's playing Levy, who, in my honest opinion, is the baddest Shakespeare, August Wilson actor I have ever had the privilege of sharing stage with. Ron Connor, who's just, he didn't have to say anything because a lot of our dialogue, we had no dialogue, but it was just a feed.
Mm.
It was a look, it was an attitude, and this is what I need. And just going from that kind of restrictiveness to the request to just show up. And this is what I need. And what do you need from me? And let's run it.
Yeah.
Let's chop it up. Let's see what it looked like. And then let's show the director when we're done.
Mhm.
And it it fed my soul. It really did. And I needed it.
Yeah.
It
So-
needed it. So I often look for those kinds of opportunities where I'm being fed. As a sister here that I absolutely love working with. She writes amazing work. I just wish she wrote longer work, but I like the work that she does because it speaks to my soul. Absolutely speaks to my soul. She's she loves doing our history, especially her focus is often where the women that fit in it. Like we did one play that we talked about. We all know about the March on Washington, but did we talk about the women who were behind the scenes that made it happen?
Yes.
We all know about
The
the
rights
integration.
movement and all the women, not just the ones who were just the Coretta Scott Kings and
Can we talk about Pauli Murray?
Yes, but let's just talk
Can we
about all of the
talk
women
about Bella Abzug? Can we talk about Dr. Dorothy Height?
Yes, yes.
And
all
talk about
of
them women.
And then all of those other women in community who were doing that work, who were organizing, who were facilitating the meetings, who were cleaning up the places where the meetings were held.
In the kitchen frying the chicken, girl, so folk can eat.
Cooking the food. So when you went out, who were, wait a minute, who were getting together the bail money in case you did get arrested for, all that goes on behind the scenes that make movements happen. And
so she does that kind of work. And I love her. I absolutely love her. So I'm looking forward to allying with her in the near future. Because the work is nourishing.
Yeah.
And I don't think we talk enough about how we are nourished from the experience of taking all the tools to speak with distinction. The other book that I mentioned, Backwards and Forwards, taking all the technical stuff and putting it all together, putting it in your muscle memory, and then throwing it away. It's like, okay, I need to be fed for real. This I'm here for a purpose. I'm looking to feed, but I need to be poured into. In order to make this story, put it on its feet and make it absolutely come to life. I know all the stuff is way back here, so it's in there somewhere. But right now, we're telling the story. Can we get to that part?
Yeah.
And let's just see what we can learn today. And it always comes up after when we're in the cast parties. The banter.
Yeah, that's why at this point, beyond the academic environment, and even in some of the the workshop environments, I think it is so critical that we just hold on to each other.
Yes.
I had a conversation earlier with a group of artists about this. Like I do not know where I would be personally and definitely as an artist without my core groups, without the people I could talk to about the work and just be in creative space with, that wasn't a part of some formal program or some education, but just even now, like the thing that we did where we showed up together, you and I and Diane Dennis, just that hour and a half was
wonderful,
so rich. And it was just, for me, it was like hearing the two of you and what was talking, it was just a pivot that I had to make. But I really believe that, just one of the things, recognizing each other as, oh, wait a minute, this is part of my workforce. This is part of my tribe. This is okay. And realizing that their conversations, you and I having this conversation, we understand each other, and we could go on and on and on and on. And there are other people in our lives who won't get it. Well, that's not their wheelhouse. It's not where they get it. But just how these conversations and being and having some creative people in our life, it fuels us. It tickles our imagination. It helps us to remember It just helps us to be in that space where we can explore and explore and explore. And I'm so
And play.
grateful. And play, just play, just play. The joy of playing. I have creative partnerships right now where it's just the joy of just playing together.
You know, I had a professor, my second year, yeah, she was my second year, scene study professor. One day she stopped us from doing all the work. Patricia Boyette. She was an interesting person, but I grew fond of her.
Mhm.
This one particular day, we weren't going to do any of the work, none of the breathing, none of the, movement, none of that. She bought a bunch of blank paper. She bought crayons. It looked like your house, only disheveled. Play things, sparkly things, glue, odds, ends, knickknacks. And for that 2 hours in studio, we had to create something.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember sitting there, and I went and grabbed all the Crayola crayons, the 96 box, the big one. The pencil sharpener. Yeah. And I just had a bunch of papers, and I'm sitting over in the corner, and the tongue. I'm in it. And I distinctly remember in the midst of all of that, something in my head just unlocked.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It was the biggest, the most subtlest, but the biggest, most profound aha.
Mm-hmm.
I could have taken out of that class that whole entire semester.
Yeah, that's powerful work. Jenny O'Grady, my bookmaking exhibiting partner, we started these workshops last year. We wanted to bring our studio experience to other people and other people who are engaged in, and these were not even artists initially. They were people who were involved in work where they had a common initiative or goal. And we began in academia. One group was a group of faculty who got together and developed a diversity committee, so they were revisiting their commitment, they were revisiting their mission. And then in another college, we worked with a group of academics who had developed a teaching sensitivity initiative.
Okay.
Culturally sensitive teaching initiative. And they were also redefining their vision. And so what Jenny and I did was just, we understood what they were doing and brought them in and said, okay, so we're going to work together. And we're going to work together without words. And so we bring crayons and paints and glue and scissors. I mean, we bring a studio of stuff. Paper samples and cloth, you name it, doodads, all kinds of stuff. And we would ask, the group just basic questions like, why are you here? Why did you sign up to do this work? Why did you join this committee in the first place? What's your commitment? What was your commitment then? What is it now? What are your challenges now? How are you aligned with this work? How are you feeling about it? What do you see going forward? And ask them those questions. And then we would ask them to respond to those questions without words. We just put paper in front of them, paint, crayon, pencils, pens, swatches, just stuff, each table. And, that's our thing. We go and we just have stuff. And what people are able to access when they're just working through literally their hands and their fingers, they're bypassing the automatic responses, the responses and the thoughts that are always on the surface. So if you ask that, but they were able to go deeper, and we do those workshops in silence. I did a similar one for the Omega Institute last summer. For a course of people who were in various leadership positions, going through an ecological leadership program, certification program. And same thing, just for 7 weeks. Okay, so you're doing this work in your community, in your agency, in your organization. Where are you with that? What's your self-talk? What's coming up? What are you afraid of? All right. What are the things that you're saying to yourself about being a leader that you're not saying out loud? Yeah, I did that one. I actually went into, we were in Zoom, and I actually went into a dark closet. And so we explored those questions that, like, we aren't letting anybody know about all of that. And so all of that to say how rich and powerful and potent it is to just sometimes get quiet, get still, get a marker, some paper, and just work. Remember to just let go, to give ourselves permission to play, to give ourselves permission just to be in a space where we don't have to have the answers that we think we have to have, or we don't have to have the discussion that we think we have to have. Just be there and just feel our way to ourselves. Like, what's going on? And to bring that forward and then step back. And give the epiphany and the revelation room to just like arrive. And how just sweet it is. It's so important, whether we're visual artists or performing artists or literary artists. I was talking with a friend of mine today who was working on a novel, you know, and went on a retreat and didn't get the work done that he wanted to get done. But someone suggested maybe it was just, you just needed to like anchor somewhere else and play and just, you know. So all of that to say, yeah, find your friends, find your posse, find your support group. Jackie has been a central part of my creative life for decades now. I was going to count, but I can't count because I'm sleepy. I'm getting and it makes all the difference in the world when you have a place where you can show up, not just personally, but creatively. And it's not a competition, and you can show up authentically, and you can be your raw self, and you can be in silence. You can be in silence together and creating together. But the point is, we invite you to find that place, that creative community, that creative nucleus. If you don't, you know, want to do communities in life, find your person, find your people where you can just show up being your creative self.
And know that you're going to be supported.
And know you're going to be supported.
It's nothing like it.
It is not, I'm telling you.
Absolutely nothing like it.
I was telling another group early today, I just cannot imagine where I would be in my life, and definitely my creative life, if not for my core circle of creative friends, and especially, you know, no shade on the males in my life, but especially my sister circles, you know, and, you know, those times when whatever was going on, the work of going out and doing prayer work together, or doing ceremony work together, or just being together, letting each other cry, you know, do that inner work that allows whatever is there to come forward creatively. I just can't imagine a life without that.
Without that, yeah.
And I'm thinking about my granddaughter. She's third generation Partlow artist. She is loving being where she is at School of the Arts because there are other creatives there.
And that's important. That's important.
She's having conversations, you know, and she's having this space to be immersed in her work and being around it. You know, and there's certain things I'm just committed to. I'm committed to really being that for her and showing her, like, okay, and that you got that in school. And so outside of school, you also have this place here, you know, in your Yaya's home with your family, you know, and this is where you get to work things out. The other conversation, we can pick up on this later, that I don't want her anywhere near the conversation of the starving artist.
It's no need for it. That niche has already been carved and stamped. Absolutely.
I want her to always realize, and I think that she does. She's in this space as an artist where she's found a physical space, like where she works at school and it's studio, because I think they have like just like 3 hours of studio every day. So
Nice.
she has that space, and then she's got her stuff at home. You know? And she's got the friends around her who are also creative. So she's really, really anchoring right now, but I'm tracking with her, and so just gently layering on the other pieces, and just letting her know, being that in the world, that she's safe and that she's extraordinary. And like, oh my goodness, you're going to be able to do a lot of things with what you're doing. You don't have any concerns about the future. You're going to be just fine. And planting that seed early on, not the angst about, oh my gosh, what are you going to do? What kind of job you're going to get being an artist?
Yes.
You're going to be just fine.
Doors
just
will open.
Doing what you're doing. You're going to be,
Doors will open.
I have things on my website, some pieces she did, and I told her the other day, I said, there's some people who want to buy prints of your work. And she was like, really? Yeah, that could be your weekend money, girlfriend. But that's another conversation for another. Week 8. I'm so grateful for this process. I am now working on, I had to stop yesterday because I have canvases and things all over the place, which is one of the reasons why I've been in, it's like rearranging my whole living space / spring cleaning in the process. Big old canvases. I am working now on like 7 new pieces simultaneously. So all of it works in, I know, but this is one of the major benefits of this process is like showing up every week, and it's not even landing on me like, oh, I got to do something this week, but it's like, oh, okay, so where do I get to go now? So I've got all of these other pieces, and then also still being with the commitment to show up. So let me do this. I don't know. Well, maybe I'll keep it like this if you can see it. So continue with that. What was it? Impulse, inspiration with the cards. Can you see that?
Yes.
Those 2 pieces there. So I think I talked a few weeks ago. I love burning essential oils, as you well know, right?
Oh, yeah.
And this is a part of just being like tuned in. And so you can't see it that well, but there's always resin left, right? So a while ago, it was just like one day I just looked and say, ooh. So I started painting with it. Of course, it's really, really sticky. It just never, ever really, really dries. So I'm just loving that. So I'm just taking it and painting the resin. Sticky though, I have to put tape over it to give it that like glossy. And then before I put the tape on it, just dropping blotches of ink and just letting it be that. So these cards, there's one, there's another one. So I did finish those and just looking at that possibility. Yeah, writing my name on the back. This one, I posted this on Facebook, and this came to me while I was doing this, right? The discipline of living well is sustaining the peace and fulfillment found in the quiet moments of the soul. It just came forward, just sitting there at the table last week, putting all of this together, being in that place of peace where I didn't feel angst. I didn't feel nervous or anything, but I gotta hurry. It's just like, wow, this is so cool. This is like really living well when I can get up every morning and do exactly what I want and do my art. It's like, this is the key. This is the key. So those are mine. Those are 2 pieces. And I don't know, because I don't rush myself, these 7 pieces. Maybe one of them will be complete next week. Maybe not. Maybe something new. I have to show you this one thing. Where are you? This is from last week. And there were people.
I remember this piece. Yeah.
So several years ago, it was around holiday time. I had Clay, my granddaughter Lotus, She made the piece and then I painted it, right? And it's been just sitting around, getting in the way. I'm always moving. And finally last week was like, okay, this is like, I gotta do something with you. And that's how that got born. It was like, it looks like a little elf thing, but I call it the little monster, right?
Okay.
The little monster. So I'm really fascinated by this. I'm going to get some more clay this week. And I'm going to make some more of them, see where this goes. We'll see. If people can make pet rocks, hey, I can make pet little monsters.
Why not? Why
It's
not?
like a little muse now. I'm looking for it. Yeah. So, okay. That's week 8. Thank you, everyone who's shown up for this conversation. We appreciate you so much being here. I appreciate you, Jackie, so much with us taking this on and you being here with me, and we taking on our creative lives in a different way, and evolving this conversation. We were just talking, so hopefully next week we'll have a special guest. And we'll line up some special guests to bring to you all, if not next week. Soon come, soon come. Remember to subscribe. Thank you very much. And click the notification button. Honestly, I haven't figured out that thing yet, but I will. Just like the notification button. Okay, if you click that, I guess you get notified every time
something new comes up.
That's a good thing. All right. And oh, there it is. Okay, now I remember because it shows up on my phone. Go figure. Technology. Definitely give us a thumbs up, leave us a comment. Take good care of yourselves. To the artists out there, if you haven't already, find your people. Find your people. Find your circuit. Find your circuit. It was Freudian. Okay. Find your people. Find your circuit.
Got it.
Yeah. Take care of yourselves. We love you so much. Thank you. Till next week. Take care. Bye-bye.